What we're going to do, this is episode 2 of Off the Cuff, and what we did in the first episode is we read from this beautiful book, The Lost Keys of Freemasonry by Manley P. Hall. And why this book, I believe, is so important and why I'm starting off my first live streams with it is because not only is it the story that it has helped me in my life understand a lot of these mythologies, analogies, stories, a lot of stuff out there, a lot of people out there trying to tell us who they think people are and what is going on with this reality. And to me, those questions are far deeper than anybody surmises. So, hello, lovely commenters and audio listeners. Hello, Andrew. Hello to everyone. Sketchy. Hello to Kaiva and anyone else who is listening out there. So, again, Manley P. Hall, he is a gentleman born 1901, died, as it says on the back of here, in 1990. He was around for a long time. Something crazy happened, actually, that I learned not too long ago with my girlfriend as we were looking into Manley P. Hall, and his history was that he was actually murdered. Weird enough. Seems that people are always going after those who are trying to give good things to the light. And so here we are. He created the Philosophical Research Society, and I think why that is so important because a lot of these books are very cheap, and he publishes them both in little essay forms, so $5 to $10, or the bigger books, $10, $15, $20, $30. And what he's doing is he's showing that the esoteric, the occult, and the philosophical don't have to be so obscure. It actually doesn't have to be so, as we would call it, occult, right? Occult is a simple term that seems to get a lot of bad rap. Occult, truly, if we break it down by definition, and it's got a lot deeper definition than this, but occult means hidden. So what this is called is we're unveiling the lost keys. And so Manley P. Hall also unveiled a lot of these hidden and occult topics. And so go out there, go to Amazon, go to your local bookstore and buy this book. And as we're reading and listening through, you will then come to find out why. So let's just get right into it. We went through the introduction in the first episode. So if you want to hear the introduction and my conversing about that, I went in and related the introduction, what was going on, into a lot of different animes, stories, mythologies. And so did a nice little deep dive commentary, and we're going to do the same thing today. So here we are. The Lost Keys of Freemasonry, Prologue. In the fields of chaos. The first flush of awakening life pierced the impenetrable expanse of cosmic night, turning the darkness of negation into the dim twilight of unfolding being. Silhouetted against the shadowy gates of eternity, the lonely figure of a mystic stranger stood up upon the nebulous banks of swirling substance, robed in a shimmery blue mantle of mystery, and his head encircled by a golden crown of dazzling light. The darkness of chaos fled before the rays that poured like streams of living fire from his divine form. From some cosmos greater far than ours, this mystic visitor came, answering the call of divinity. From star to star he strode, and from world to universe he was known, yet forever concealed by the filthy garments of chaotic night. Suddenly, the clouds broke and a wondrous light descended upon from somewhere else, somewhere among the seething waves of force. It bathed this lonely form in a radiance celestial, each sparkling crystal of mist gleaming like a diamond bathed in the living fire of the divine. In the gleaming flame of cosmic light bordered by the dark clouds, not being two great forms appeared, and a mighty voice thrilled eternity, each sparkling atom pulsating with the power of the Creator's word. While the great blue-robed figure bowed in awe before the footstool of his Maker, as a hand reached down from heaven, its fingers extended the benediction. Of all creation I have chosen you, and upon you my seal is placed. You are the chosen instrument of my hand, and I appoint you to be the builder of my temple. You shall raise its pillars and tile its floor. You shall ornament it with metals and with jewels, and you shall be the master of my workmen. In your hands I place the plans, and here on the tracing board of living substance I have impressed the plan you are to follow, tracing its every letter and angle in the fiery lines of my moving finger. Hiram Abiff, chosen builder of your father's house, up into your work. Yonder are the fleecy clouds, the gray mists of dawn, and the gleaming of heavenly light, and the darkness of the sleep of creation. From these shall you build without the sound of hammer or the voice of workmen, the temple of your God, eternal in the heavens, the swirling, ceaseless motion of negation. You shall chain to grind your stones. Among these spirits of not being shall you slack your lime and lay your footings. For I have watched you through the years of your youth. I have guided you through the days of your manhood. I have weighed you in the balance, and you have not been found wanting. Therefore, to you give I the glory of work, and here ordained you as the builder of my house. Unto you I give the word of the master builder. Unto you I give the tools of the craft. Unto you I give the power that has been vested in me. Be faithful unto these things, bring them back when you have finished, and I will give you the name known to God alone. So mote it be. So that's some pretty heavy shit right there. I think that it's beautiful because it draws that scene, right? We'll paraphrase it. It draws the scene of a lonely figure staring up into the great expanse, clothed in the chaos. So not yet its brilliant light. So not yet has this awareness seen the glory of the logos, as they would say, the glory of the word through the nous or through reason, that this being can be clothed by the words of God, right? And this God isn't some father God in the sky, but God of the all expanse, of the all everything. I think that this really exemplifies the state of man, or the state of humans, right? Man and women, of where we are at as when we were born, and this innocent creature amongst the chaos. And with these words that God has given us, God as in all the expanse, the universe, whatever that is, existence itself, it can give us these beautiful things. And through the path of the Mason, right, which is just the path of individuation that Carl Jung calls it, the path as you as a person that you go through when you truly decide to take the first step into becoming better, and to becoming your true self, right? Which means that you must first embrace the all-encompassing chaos, right? In mythology, in mythological stories, we must first, there's the call to adventure, says Joseph Campbell, and from the call to adventure, we may choose to not heed the call. So we may choose to not take those first steps into becoming the hero of our journey. And finally, heeding the call, we can take those first steps. It's kind of like when in Zelda, right? You are Link. What does Link mean? Link, the name, isn't just the character of who you play in the game. Link is the link to the journey, right? He's linking your consciousness. He's linking your awareness as the user, as the player, into the character of Link, this little boy who has to save the princess, defeat Ganondorf, right? Defeat the big bad evil guy, and bring harmony to the universe, to, Hyrule. And I think that kind of comes to me the best in that way, because that's the easiest way we can all understand. We, in the beginning, as he's stating in that Fields of Chaos, God clothes him in all the greatest of things, right? So Hiram Abiff is the master builder who was slain as he was building the Temple of Solomon, right? This great temple that God dwells in. And what happens is he is killed, and that's what we're going to get to. Hiram Abiff, the greatest of all people to God, is killed. And so you got to think of that as the beginning of the journey. So before Link is awakened as a boy, maybe he was Hiram Abiff, God's right-hand man, the existence's right-hand man. And then as he is destroyed from being high amongst God, he has to then play the game all over again to re-up himself into being God's right-hand man, which you're always are. But Link takes that story further. And so what does he do? He goes out, and the first thing you don't get the Master Sword, you get a little staff. And you have to learn how to, cut down apples and eat them for health and make food and find all your tools as you're exploring these things, doing the experience that every NPC or non-playable character in that game is trying to help push you along. So you can think of those non-playable characters as just everyone who hasn't woken up to the game, to the story, or taken their Mason's path, right? Because in the introduction, for those of you who weren't here, Friday night, as I was doing the episode 1 and the introduction, is that we forget that you don't have to be a Freemason through the temple lodge in this material plane to truly go upon your path as a hero, or to be a Mason, right? To become a Freemason. Does it help? Yes. I think that the initiations they go through, the 3 grades of the Blue Lodge, are actually really important, because it is a truly an exemplified space, sacred space, that when you go through ritual, your consciousness is experiencing these signs and symbols and archetypes in real life, instead of having it be drawn out through our day-to-day experience, which I think you can go through certain rituals and experiences like that if you set up your life that way. But to truly be initiated through a secret, it's not even a secret society, it's basically just a fraternal men's group, because you can, again, read these books and all the secrets are in here. So anybody out there who's talking nonsense and madness about the secret handshakes and the secret rites and rituals, I'm telling you, you can find out everything that they do from here. It's just words are nothing until you've got a nervous system and an experience to move them through, or an understanding what these symbols even mean. So, I digress. And again, if you have any questions throughout, please put it in the comments and we'll talk about it, right? This is what we're all here for. The great light died out of the heavens. The streaming fingers of living light vanished in the misty, lonely twilight, and again covered not being with its sable mantle. Hiram Abiff again stood alone, gazing out into the endless ocean of oblivion, nothing but swirling, seething matter as far as eye could see. Then he straightened his shoulders, and taking the trestle board in his hands, and clasping to his heart the glowing word of the Master, walked slowly away and was swallowed up in the mists of primordial dawn. How may man measure timeless eternity? Ages passed, and the lonely builder labored with his plan with only love and humility in his heart, his hand molding the darkness which he blessed while his eyes were raised above where the great light had shone down from heaven. In the divine solitude he labored with no voice to cheer, no spirit to condemn, alone in the boundless all, with the great chill of the morning mist upon his brow, but his heart still warm with the light of the Master's word. It seemed a hopeless task. No single pair of hands could mold that darkness. No single heart, no matter how true, could be great enough to project pulsing cosmic love into the cold mists of oblivion. Though the darkness settled ever closer about him and the misty fingers of negation twined around his being, still with divine trust the builder labored. With divine hope he laid his footings, and from the boundless clay he made the molds. To cast his sacred ornaments slowly, the building grew, and dim forms molded by the Master's hand took shape about him. 3 huge soulless creatures had the Master fashioned, great beings which loomed like grim specters in the semi-darkness. They were 3 builders he had blessed, and now in stately file they passed before him. And Hiram held out his arms to his creation, saying, "Brothers, I have built you for your works. I have formed you to labor with me in the building of the Master's home. You are the children of my being. I have labored with you. Now labor with me for the glory of our God." So the images and things that kind of come to me as I'm reading about this is, the first thought is that I think that spirituality and religion should be integrated, because I think that dogma is actually quite important. And to me, dogma can be actually kind of broken down to as being virtues or principles or structure that a person abides by. In your Eastern mysticism and Eastern philosophies, the yogic tradition, they have, and I've said this in multiple videos, they have your niyama and yama, yama and niyama, your ethics and morals. And these are things that help us on our day-to-day paths and day-to-day experiences, really like when things are hard, and if we've ingrained these ethics and moral structures into our nervous system, our body will just do those things. It will just react in such ways until something so great a force comes upon us and makes us have to have to step in, have to take over for the robot nervous system that's just moving through. And then we can add that experience if chosen well or ill, right? Which ill only meaning that you might have to do it again, right? If you accrued more karma or were able to burn that karma off. And then you go upon your path and that just keeps happening, right? And that's why I think it's really important to understand that why religion has its place in our society, and why spirituality without religion is kind of a hollow force of nonsense. And we see it if you've ever been to places like Boulder or San Francisco or Austin. You get these people, they're incredulous, they're annoying. And I feel like I can only say these things because of being the age I am and the path that I've taken, is that I've probably been a very annoying individual when I've talked about these things on my path. So it's humbling, really. And every time I think about it, it makes me cringe a little, especially those who have experienced with me. So neither here nor there. But what we're talking about in this is how he's talking about that there are the darkness settled ever closer about him and the misty fingers of negation twined around his being. And I think the misty fingers of negation could be just that. The darkness, not only in your psyche, but since the psyche has darkness, and because we all have shadow, we all have things that go bump in the night that give us fear and separation and anxiety and keep us in ignorance. Like those things take shape in the outward world. Because if we didn't have those things in our psyche, the experiences we have would just be muddled material nonsense and it wouldn't matter. But it does, because we have to learn to either detach from those things or understand that they're a life lesson. And I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive, really. That those things together are what make us a better person. And that's why the video game world and the anime and the films and these things can teach us that. They can teach us how we can take our everyday experiences and transmute them into experiences of the divine path, of the path to being the best person that you can be, excellence, right? Eudaimonia, true happiness, as Aristotle would call it. Plato talks about how we move up into the sun, into the good. And when we do those types of things, we can truly manifest, and not spiritually manifest as in this new agey nonsense, but the more we have these experiences and choose wisely, is the more that the looping simulation of the system that we're living in, which I believe is an organic one, those things will come back at us. And then it's more like, instead of a spiral, instead of a loop, it's a spiral. I may not have to do that again, right? The darkness changes shape. Some of that darkness is integrated, and those dragons become our friends, our guides, and other times they dissolve into the nothingness. And so what he does here is he creates three builders with him. He out of the mold, of the great chaos, right? And again, we can see that in our Abrahamic traditions, where it's in a way the archetype of Adam and Eve, right? Where there's two different creation stories in the Bible. The first one, he creates Adam and Eve, or Adam and the first Eve, right? Fact check me, please. The first Eve, they're created together, right? Not separate, not from his rib. They're both molded from clay out of the universe. So it's kind of like what the great master geometer, right, the God that he's talking about here is he created, there was one. And in here, he wasn't created. There was this lone figure who was staring off into the nothingness, thinking how wowness this is. But in the Bible, they make God create him, and then the second story, the creation story in Genesis, is then, because supposedly that didn't work, right? Adam and Eve wanted to be equals. Eve wanted to be equals, or the feminine figure that was created first. Adam didn't like that. I don't know. Whatever. And so that person went away. Some think that's Lilith, right? And I don't mean whatever as in we shouldn't be equals, men and women should be equals. I mean, like, it's weird in this tradition how that's the story, right? That's integrated into our being. And we just kind of side slap that off. No one knows. If you were to ask 90% of humans in the world who are Christian or anything, the story is in our Western mythos. Was there 2 creation stories in Genesis? Most likely they would be like, what do you mean? Adam and Eve, right? Eve came from the rib. And he's like, no, that was the second Eve, right? The first one was Lilith, and she goes off and does her own archetypically actually not all that great of things. So yeah, thank you, AF, Bald Man, King Mob himself in the comments. This character, so what I'm getting at is that Adam, or this master builder, Hiram Abiff, have similar archetypical characters that once, when God put the word into the world and creation was there, and Adam was made, Adam was meant to be the namer of all things, right? To put it out there so the world could take form. I think this is way more beautiful, but that's me. That's why I'm here talking to you and telling you about it. So let's go back to it. But the specters laughed, turning upon their maker and striking him with his own tools given him by God out of heaven. They left their grand master dying in the midst of his labors, broken and crushed by the threefold powers of cosmic night. As he lay bleeding at the feet of his handiwork, the martyred builder raised his eyes to the seething clouds, and his face was sweet with divine love and cosmic understanding as he prayed unto the master who had sent him forth. O master of workmen, great architect of the universe, my labors are not finished. Why must they always remain undone? I have not completed the thing for which thou hast sent me unto being. For my very creation have turned against me, and the tools thou gavest me have destroyed me. The children that I formed in love in their ignorance have murdered me. Here, Father, is the word thou gavest me now, it read with my own blood. O Master, I return it to thee, for I have kept it in my sacred heart. Here are the tools, the tracing board, and the vessels I have wrought. Around me stand the ruins of my temple, which I must leave. Unto thee, O God, the diviner knower of all things, I return them all, realizing that in thy good times lies the fulfillment of all things. Thou, O God, knowest our downsitting and our uprising, and thou understandest our thoughts afar off. In thy name, Father, I have labored, and in thy cause I death, a faith builder. The master fell back, his upturned face sweet in the last repose of death, and the light rays no longer pouring from him. The gray clouds gathered closer as though to form a winding sheet around the body of their murdered master. Interesting. And that goes back to the spoiler alert I gave you not too long ago about Hiram was killed by his 3 dudes that his builders of men, his workmen, kind of lame, gives them a job. What do? They kill him. So what comes to me in this is that this actually sounds much like the Gnostic stories of the Demiurge, interesting enough. And this is something I just thought of as I was speaking, was that it sounds like out of the ever expansing all of things, some call it God, some call it the great architect, the cosmos. He created this lone figure and then clothed him with the ability to make things, to name things, and in naming them, mold them from the ever-creating chaos. And those creations that then, because from there, Hiram creates these 3 beings to help him, and in doing so, those 3 beings then kill him. And so interesting enough to me, that also sounds like Hiram is the Demiurge in this world. And that in the Gnostic mythos is, like I said last time, and a lot of you know, a lot of you, whoever's out there listening, and you may not know, is that Gnosticism kind of gets a bad rap. And that most of it is that people think that Gnosticism, which stems from the word gnosis or direct experience, the Gnostics believe in the black iron prison, which It feels like, however, and which he talks about in the introduction. But that black iron prison is all around us, and the reason that it's there is because of it is for us to be able to get out of it and realize that's what the robot, or that's what this all is. That there is more to this world than just the material. And that Demiurge, who created this material world, right? He created these beings and wanted help to create the greatest of all places. And then they came after him and they killed him. And so to me, it's like in the Gnostic world, there's more than just that. A lot of Gnostics and Neoplatonic thinkers, or Neoplatonic being post-Plato, those who took on Plato's work in around about 100 AD, there was also Gnosticism, which came around like 100 BC to 200 AD, right? Again, fact check me, those aren't perfect dates. But the idea is that Gnosticism can be understanding of that our light in our body isn't just trying to get out of this body in this material world and then interact and integrate with the divine, with the all, with the sun, with the good, but that we actually want to bring down that light into our being and then use this cosmic play universe, this play thing that we are in, this game, right? This beautiful world, and make it what we can. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because it gives life meaning then, that we all can become the bodhisattva. We all can become that person who can help others in need. And it doesn't even have to be a helping as in I'm going to enlighten them, because I can't enlighten you. Only you can enlighten you, right? I'm still trying to understand my own levels of enlightenment. And that thought breaks daily, where it's like, that's why we practice. That's why we have dedication. And so it's comes back to what we're doing here, is that he died, that his 3 buddies killed him, and he still was smiling and wishing them grace. And so that leads me to the thought of when Jesus was being taken to the cross, or Giordano Bruno was being burnt at the stake, that yes, thank you, Omar. Is that he looked up into the sky, talking to his father, right? Talking to the divine, and he says, "Bless them, for they know not what they do." And I think that is something that if we can walk around daily as a mantra, then we would have a lot more grace to everyone that we interact with. And again, I think I inundate myself with these symbols and signs and stories because I'm trying to remember myself, right? Plato uses the term anathema, and I probably butchered that, but what he's saying in that, what that word means is it means remembering. And you're actually trying to remember, because you're continually remembering over and over again, because of you already know all these things. I talk like this and I say these things, and I'm even created this channel because I think that there is a need for these things because we already know it. And I'm just here to help as a signpost, guide us towards the stories maybe that'll help you remember, right? These things that are every day. There are times where it's okay to just play a game or watch a show because I'm tired. But then there's those times where, like, maybe if we spent 90% of the time in taking stories, signs, and symbols and mythologies that actually do something for us, that help us move our life forward to be a better partner, to be a better family man, to be a better business owner, to be a better, person, be a better person, right? To be able to understand that my place is at the right hand of God. And that integration doesn't have to be after this life. I think that's nonsense. I think you integrate it daily, and that's what the theurgists do, the Neoplatonists. The theurgy means bringing the divine in, uniting with divinity, and there's practices to do so. And that's where the big split off. And to go back to my rant on Gnosticism, is that there were certain Gnostics and Neoplatonic thinkers who wanted to get out of the body into the divine. But what I'm saying is that, and what I think this is saying is that we must bring the divine into us and be embodied beings because we're here anyway. Heidegger calls it thrownness, and he uses the term Dasein, right? These really neologisms, meaning he created these words because we needed a new kind of understanding of where we were in the world, because of the scientific method brought us beautiful things, but also has led us into straight debauchery to today. And so I think that once we understood that Cartesianism was important to a point, the scientific method was important to a point, but now what we need to do is we need to bring it back and integrate ourselves with the world, that my subjectivity and my objectivity aren't separate at all, but that they're integrated, that those words are fine to use, but understand what they mean. And once I have the ability to not lose myself to things, but have the ability to integrate into them, that then I can be embodied, which is why I believe the martial arts are important, which is why I believe intimacy is important, which is why I believe these practices are important. And that's because we every day are just trying to be a better person. That's why I think anime is important, especially the ones that have badass fight scenes, because those characters just don't become like superheroes. Well, sometimes they do, but the idea is that they had some internal spark or flame that helped push them forward into being the badass superhero like anime main characters that they are. Something tragic happened, and in that tragicness, they were able to push past themselves and become greater. And then by doing those crazy tragic things, like say in the story Jujutsu Kaisen, Itadori, the main character, like he already was a badass for a high schooler, but then these people came in because of he was willing and ready at that moment, and this whole other world of sorcery takes place, right? Or in Demon Slayer, a terrible thing, tragedy happened, and he had to respond from that. And instead of being depressed and sorrowful and taking SSRIs and all these crazy things, which they probably don't have in Demon Slayer, but you know what I mean, is that what they're doing is that they're moving themselves forward in a way. And what's cool about saying he picks up a sword and just starts training with it is that sword in Demon Slayer, or that sword in our archetypical heroes' journeys, what it's doing is it's giving us the ability to use reason and will, right? That sword is the intellect incarnate and our willpower incarnate. And once it becomes more than just a sword, but a part of our body and part of our being, that's when we truly can be on our hero's journey and then integrate all the experiences we have to become, the best we can become. So let's continue. Yeah, thanks for listening. Fire all around, Casey. Suddenly the heavens opened up again, and a shaft of light bathed the form of Hiram in a glory celestial. Again the voice spoke from the heavens where the great king sat upon the clouds of creation. He is not dead. He is asleep. Who will awaken him? His labors are not done, and in death he guards the sacred relics more closely than ever. For the word and the tracing board are his. I have given them to him. But he must remain asleep until these three who have slain him shall bring him back to life. For every wrong must be righted, and the slayers of my house, the destroyers of my temple, must labor in the place of their builder until they raise their master from the dead. The three murderers fell on their knees and raised their hands to heaven as though to ward off the light which had disclosed their crime. O God, great is our sin, for we have slain our Grand Master Hiram Abiff. Just is thy punishment, and as we have slain him, we now dedicate our lives to this resurrection. The first was our human weakness, the second our sacred duty. Be it so, answered the voice from heaven. The great light vanished, and the clouds of darkness and mist concealed the body of the murdered master. Side note, I don't know if I'm going to show you this. You might not be able to see it. It's the three ruffians, which here he talks about how the three ruffians, or the people that he created that slain him, were symbolically thought, desire, and action. And it says these three murderers, perverted thought, uncurbed emotion, and destructive actions, slay the spirit of life in man and bring down the temple of creation in ruins about their own heads. In the ancient mysteries, woman symbolized the emotional nature of man, typifying the emotional excess as one of the slayers of this universal energy. And he just says that because there's a man, a boy man, an old man, and a woman. Let's see here. So here, this is what I'm seeing and reading from here. It was swallowed up in the swirling darkness which left no mark, no gravestone to mark the place where the builder had lain. O God, cried the three murderers, where shall we find our master now? A hand reached down again from the great unseen, and a tiny lamp was handed them, whose oil flame but burned silently and clearly in the darkness. By this light shall ye seek him whom ye have slain. The three forms surrounded the light and bowed in prayer and thanksgiving for this solitary gleam, which was to light the darkness of their way. From somewhere above in the regions of not being, the great voice spoke, a thundering voice that filled chaos with its sound. He cometh forth as a flower and is cut down. He fleeth also as a shadow and continued not. As the waters fail from the sea and the flood decayeth and drieth up, so man lieth down and riseth not again. Yet I have compassion upon the children of my creation. I administer unto them in time of trouble and save them with an everlasting salvation. Seek ye where the broken twig lies and the dead stick molds sway, where the clouds float together and the stones rest by the hillside. For all these mark the grave of Hiram, who has carried my will with him to the tomb. This eternal quest is yours until ye have found your builder, until the cup giveth up its secret and the grave giveth up its ghosts. No more shall I speak until ye have found and raised my beloved son and have listened to the words of my messenger, and with him as your guide have finished the temple which I shall then inhabit. Amen. The gray dawn still lay asleep in the arms of darkness. Out through the great mystery of not being, all was silence. Unknowable, through the misty dawn like strange phantoms of a dream. Three figures wandered over the great unknown, carrying in their hands a tiny light, the lamp given to them by their builder's father. Over stick and stone and cloud and star they wandered eternally in search of a silent grave, stopping again and again to explore the depths of some mystic recess, praying for liberation from their endless search, yet bound by their vows to raise the builder they had slain, whose grave was marked by the broken twig and whose body was laid in the white, winding sheet of death somewhere over the brow of the eternal hill. And that is the end of the prologue. And so on this left-hand side of this page at the end, it has a picture. It says, the guardian of the threshold. And underneath it says, illumined and sanctified for his labor by the realization of individual responsibility. The candidate goes forth to master his own lower nature, the beast that must ever stand between him and the altar of his God. The lessons of self-mastery were taught in all the mystery schools. And here is that picture. Yeah, nice. And what do I think about that? And what really comes to me when I'm reading that is that we are the three builders. Not only so we have all of those, right, within us that we are working on. We have thought, desire, and action. We all have perverted thought, uncurbed emotions, and destructive actions. And the temple that we're trying to build and create is the external temple and the internal temple of the mind body, right? Of the high man, of Adam Kadmon. In Dune, they call it the Kiswat Haderach. In the Wheel of Time, they call it the Dragon Reborn. And it's in many mythologies. It's that we are fallen, right? And this idea of fallen is something that I struggled with in my younger years because I was like, well, that's not fair. Why? Who deems to call me fallen, right? And then you get an experience check and a world check, and it's all like, no, bro, you are fallen. You have all these things, and you need to work on them. You need to alchemize them. You must put them through the crucible, not only the crucible of the internal fire of the soul, but the crucible of the world, of what we're doing on our day-to-day basis. And we have, what did he call it? How did he put it in here? We must go find Hiram Abiff. We must find the builder again. Over stick and stone and cloud and star, they wandered eternally in search of a silent grave, stopping again and again to explore the depths of some mystic recess, praying for liberation from the endless search, yet bound by their vows to raise the builder they had slain, whose grave was marked by the broken twig and whose body was laid away in the white winding sheet of death somewhere out over the brow of the eternal hill. That we are bound to the vow. I think that when we entered this world, when we were thrown into the world, when we were born, that was the vow that we took. And as we walk through this world, we must choose every day to do our best and to be our best and to be and to dedicate ourselves to the higher, to something outside of ourselves, right? And the problem is a lot of people dedicate themselves to a demagogue, to a charlatan, to somebody else, instead of understanding that I need to dedicate myself to the highest form of everything, right? And that's why people deem it God, right? Or the universe or the cosmos or the Buddha or whatever that is, right? People vow themselves to enlightenment and all these things, but which I think is important, right? The enlightenment of all. I think that when we move through the world, that vow is exactly that. The vow, and I like the Western mythologies of the vow of the Holy Grail. I must search after the cup that shall bring immortality. Or in Full Metal Alchemist, all the normies and or evil people were vowing and searching after the Philosopher's Stone, but what they realized is the Philosopher's Stone actually wasn't the real package. And it was actually everything you learned along the way after you make the vow, is that everything you learned on this way is actually giving you the level ups. And that Philosopher's Stone, or the things that you gain, they call them in Hindu and yogic teachings, they call it the siddhis, right? These mind powers. Things that happen on psychedelics, like telepathy and clairvoyance and all these things. These are just things. And it's actually the enlightenment of the person to understand that here. It's when they say, it's the saying of, before enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. After enlightenment, what did you do? I chopped wood and I carried water. The mythology is also spoken in all of our stories, is that in a lot of the kung fu stories or in our superhero stories of Superman, the one in Superman is the one I'm thinking is that, or a lot of them is that, like, they get these powers and then they become farmers. Clark Kent wanted just to be a normal guy. And so, Superman wanted to be a normal guy. He just became Clark Kent. He needed a secret identity. He needed to be normal so he didn't continually feel like the presence of divinity was upon him, because that, as they say, if you look onto it with too much grandeur at all times, you become God mad. And that maybe it's okay to every once in a while, hang out again, watch a movie, or take a trip, make soup, do these things, practice kung fu outside or mow the lawn, right? All these things we can do as we're on this path, because those things become those meditative moments for us. And even those things are on our way of finding Hiram Abiff and building the temple. And so that's something I continually am reminding myself as well. And again, why I read these things. So that was the prologue. In the introduction, I think I want to get a little into, I don't know how much I'm going to get into it because I tend to talk a lot, but we shall continue. And so before chapter 1, it has the temple builders on the side. And what it says is, you, again, this is just what I was talking about. And so he's just saying it, right? You are the temple builders of the future. With your hands must be raised the domes and spires of a coming civilization. Upon the foundation you have laid, tomorrow shall build a far more noble edifice. Builders of the temple, of character, wherein should dwell an enlightened spirit, truers of the rock of relationship, molders of those vessels created to contain the oil of life, up and to the task appointed. Never before in the history of men have you had the opportunity that now confronts you. The world waits for the illuminated one who shall come from between the pillars of the portico. Humility, hoodwinked and bound, seeks entrance to the temple of wisdom. Fling wide the gate and let the worthy enter. Fling wide the gate and let the light that is the life of men shine forth. Hasten to complete the dwelling of the Lord, that the Spirit of God may come and dwell among his people, sanctified and ordained according to his law. And again, I'm going to say it, Hiram Abiff to me is the soul of the greater man. Just as the temple of Solomon, the temple is the outward edifice that will then hold the great spirit or your highest soul, right? And so you need both. And I find it's telling you that that's important, is that theurgy, that Iamblican theurgy is so important because Iamblichus was a Neoplatonist, and Julian, the historian or the emperor, called the next great Plato because of his work in around the 180 time. And what he was trying to do is, again, what I was talking about embodiment is we're trying to integrate divinity with my soul and my body. And so I'm trying to have them come together, not have them leave, right? So I think that's important to state. Chapter 1, the eternal quest. The average Mason, as well as the modern student of Masonic ideals, little realizes the cosmic obligation he takes upon himself when he begins his search for the sacred truths of nature as they are concealed in the ancient and modern rituals. He must not lightly regard his vows, and if he would not bring upon himself years and ages of suffering, he must cease to consider Freemasonry solely as a social order, only a few centuries old. He must realize that the ancient mystic teachings, as perpetuated in the modern rites, are sacred, and that powers unseen and unrecognized mold the destiny of those who consciously and of their own free will take upon themselves the obligations of the fraternity. Freemasonry is not a material thing. It is a science of the soul. It is not a creed or doctrine, but a universal expression of the divine wisdom. The coming together of medieval guilds, or even the building of Solomon's temple, as it is understood today, has little, if anything, to do with the true origins of Freemasonry. For Masonry does not deal with personalities. In its highest sense, it is neither historical nor archaeological, but is a divine symbolic language perpetuating under certain concrete symbols the sacred mysteries of the ancients. Only those who see in it a cosmic study, a life work, a divine inspiration to better thinking, better feeling, and better living, with the spiritual attainment of enlightenment as the end, and with the daily life of the true Mason as the means, have gained even the slightest insight into the true mysteries of the ancient rites. I'll just state, that doesn't sound like anything all these conspiracy nuts want to tell you, by the way. I don't hear it. I don't see it. I think they're swayed by demons, these people, and don't get me wrong, I love conspiracies. Some would say I'm a conspiracy nut, but there's the difference is that I'm not placing a big bad guy onto a society that has been around for a long time and then saying that they're bad when I don't have actually anything to back that up. We all can make leaps and jumps and find patterns and things, and I think that's really important, but I think that even on the outside that we see, if you were to go to these things, the Freemasons today hold potlucks and pancake fries. And they are like they're old men with little hats on riding go-karts around at your local parade and giving money. They give a lot of money like the Shriners do to their local hospitals and things like that. And so we must remember that there are a lot of, and there aren't as many today as there used to be, but there are a lot of Freemasons in the world. Well, so what does that mean? Well, that means that there are a lot of people. And if there are a lot of people, that means there are a lot of different people conspiring to do something. And so I will agree and state that there are a lot of people conspiring to do something. A lot of them are just normal old men wanting to have coffee every Sunday morning and maybe dress up and do ritual, even if they don't even know what it means, which most of them don't, that there are certain societies that have grown from the Freemasons. A lot of them some of them might be bad, right? I can admit that. And I think that that's probably very true. Some of them can be very good, and some of them can be kind of crazy, right? And the good crazy, I think, is the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, created by there were three Freemasons who created that. The reason they created that, I'll state, is also because the Freemasons aren't a magical society. It's not. That's why the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was created, was because they saw something in these rituals and their everyday experience came and interacted with it. They found certain texts and got into touch with certain people. All that's kind of, there's different histories to that. So I'm not going to state it on this one. We'll probably do another either live stream or I'll just do a different video on that. But they created their own society so they could participate in the magical and mystical aspects of our human experience. And I think that is great, because I think that type of thing is what is being hidden from us. Even as Graham Hancock says, is that we are a civilization with amnesia. And I think part of that amnesia is not understanding what Manley P. Hall is trying to tell us. And he's trying to tell us that you are more than you think you are. That once we integrate the spiritual with the material, with science and mysticism, that is when we can truly understand what consciousness is and our path and of why we're even here. Because we're not just here to do a 9 to 5 or to gain things. I think that's really important, right? And those things are important because it is an element. It is the coin. It is the disc. It is one of the 4 main elements of the ancients, right? The 5th being spirit. But like the coin, the earth element is important. And I think that's what a lot of people mistake in their life, is they forget that we need those things. So we must not always, we need a place to sleep. We need a place to live. I need a place to do my work, right? My kung fu, my magic, my studies, my relationship, my friendships, all these things are really important. So let's balance out each element. And it is those magical societies or the mystical practices or the dedication to something that help you do the balancing, because life is hard. And I think we need those dedications in our life. We need people around us that also understand what we're going through and are going to help push us forward into being a better person, which is the calcination and the blackening part of alchemy. The first few processes are the breaking down of things so that they can be dissolved and purified to be rebuilt. And that's what every day is about, is maybe getting a smaller circle, and then rebuilding that circle up with the people that truly want you to be the best you can be. Here we go. The age of the Masonic school is not to be calculated by, I already said that. Here we go. Sorry about that. The initiated brother realizes that his so-called symbols and rituals are merely blinds fabricated by the wise to perpetuate ideas incomprehensible to the average individual. He also realizes that few Masons of today know or appreciate the mystic meaning concealed within these rituals. With religious faith, we perpetuate the form, worshiping it instead of the life. But those who have not recognized the truth in the crystallized ritual, those who have not liberated the spiritual germs from the shell of empty words, are not Masons, regardless of their physical degrees and outward honors. Important. So even if you are a Mason, or even if you have all these things supposedly are supposed to make you a divine being or whatever it is, your life will show that to you, right? All the badges and magical names and magical mottos and high levels of initiation and all that nonsense is just that. It's just nonsense, unless it's not. And unless it's not is when you have these things that back that up, right? The life lessons that back that up, your word, when people look at you, right? These things, when you start talking, do you have humility? Can you joke around about things? Can you not take things so seriously, right? In the work we are taking up, it is not the intention to dwell upon the modern concepts of the craft, but to consider Freemasonry as it really is to those who know. A great cosmic organism whose true brothers and children are tied together not by spoken oaths, but by the lives so lived that they are capable of seeing through the blank wall and opening the window which is now concealed by the rubbish of materiality. When this is done and the mysteries of the universe unfold before the aspiring candidate, then in truth he discovers what Freemasonry really is. Its material aspects interest him no longer, for he has unmasked the mystery school which he is capable of recognizing only when he himself has spiritually become a member of it. The Invisible College, I think, the Illuminati, not the one that Jay-Z is part of, or which he's not a part of, or, any of these names that were like, oh, that person's a part of the Illuminati, or that person's a part of the Illuminati, right? That's kind of all nonsense, because it's what he's saying is all those things that would make him part of that, right? The Crowley shirts of do what thou wilt, or the hand signs, or any of these stupid things that that a lot of people are like, oh, they must be part of the Illuminati because if he did that, or he wears that, or he says this, or he has this kind of thing. It's actually not, because all of these different mystery schools, all of this is part of one great mystery school, and that is life. And so let's not forget these things every day. I think these things are really important. Those who have examined and studied its ancient lore have no doubt that Freemasonry, like the universe itself, which is the greatest of all schools, deals with the unfolding of a threefold principle. For all the universe is governed by the same three kings who are called the builders of the Masonic temple. They are not personalities, but principles, great intelligent energies and powers in which God, man, and the universe have charge of the molding of cosmic substance into the habitation of the living king. The temple built through the ages, first of unconscious and then conscious effort on the part of every individual who is expressing in his daily life the creative principles of these three kings. The true brother of the ancient craft realized that the completion of the temple he was building to the king of the universe was a duty, or rather a privilege, which he owed to his God, to his brother, and to himself. He knew that certain steps must be taken and that his temple must be built according to the plan. Today it seems that the plan is lost, however, for in the majority of cases, Freemasonry is no longer an operative art, but is merely speculative. In a speculative idea, until each brother, reading the mystery of his symbols and pondering over the beautiful allegories unfolded in his ritual, realizes that he himself contains the keys and the plans so long lost to his craft, and that if he would ever learn Freemasonry, he must unlock its doors with the key wrought from the base materials of his own being. True Freemasonry is esoteric. It is not a thing of this world. All that we have here is a link, a doorway through which the student may pass into the unknown. Freemasonry has nothing to do with things of form, save that it realizes form is molded by and manifests the life it contains. Consequently, the student is seeking so to mold his life that the forms will glorify the God whose temple he is slowly building, as he awakens one by one the workmen within himself and directs them to carry out the plan that has been given out of heaven. So far as it is possible to discover, ancient Freemasonry and the beautiful cosmic allegories that it teaches, perpetuated through hundreds of lodges and ancient mysteries, form the oldest of the mystery schools, and its preservation through the ages has not depended upon itself as an exoteric body of partly evolved individuals, but upon a concealed brotherhood. The esoteric side of Freemasonry, all the great mystery schools have hierarchies upon the spiritual planes of nature, which are expressing themselves in this world through creeds and organizations. The true student seeks to lift himself from the exoteric body upward spiritually until he joins the esoteric group, which without a lodge on the physical plane of nature is far greater than all the lodges, which it is the central fire. The spiritual instructors of humanity are forced to labor in the concrete world with things comprehensible to the concrete mind. And there man begins to comprehend the meaning of all the allegories and symbols which surround his exoteric work as soon as he prepares himself to receive them. The true Mason realizes that the work of the mystery schools in the world is of an inclusive rather than an exclusive nature, and that only the lodge which is broad enough to express his ideals is one whose dome is in the heavens, whose pillars are the corners of creation, whose checkerboard floor is composed of the crossing currents of human emotion, and whose altar is the human heart. Creeds cannot bind the true seeker for truth. Realizing the unity of all truths, the Mason also realizes that the hierarchies laboring with him have given him, in his varying degrees, the mystic spiritual rituals of all the mystery schools in the world. And if he would fill the place in the plan, he must not enter this sacred study for what he can get out of it, but that he may learn how to serve. In Freemasonry is concealed the mystery of creation, the answer to the problem of existence and the path the student must tread in order to join those who are really the living powers behind the thrones of modern national and international affairs. The true student realizes most of all that the taking of degrees does not make a man a Mason. A Mason is not appointed, he is evolved, and he must realize that the position he holds in the exoteric lodge means nothing compared to his position in the spiritual lodge of life. He must forever discard the idea that he can be told or instructed in the sacred mysteries, or that he is being a member of an organization improves him in any way. Let's reread that part. Very important. He must forever discard the idea that he can be told or instructed in the sacred mysteries, or that his being a member of an organization improves him in any way. He must realize that his duty is to build and to evolve the sacred teachings in his own being, that nothing but his own purified being can unlock the door to the sealed libraries of human consciousness, and that his Masonic rites must eternally speculate until he makes them operative by living the life of the mystic Mason. His karmic responsibilities increase with his opportunities. His karmic responsibilities increase with his opportunities. Those who are surrounded with knowledge and opportunity for self-improvement and make nothing of these opportunities are the lazy workmen who will be spiritually, if not physically, cast out of the temple of the king. Again, those who are surrounded with knowledge and opportunity for self-improvement and make nothing of these opportunities are the lazy workmen who will spiritually, if not physically, be cast out of the temple of the king. That's pretty dire, guys. If that doesn't make you want to understand the vow that you took in this world, because of life is continually dropping these mysteries upon us, I mean, it makes me feel like I got to do something like this. I want us all to know. What if you don't know? Now you know. So when you know, right? The Masonic Order is not a mere social organization, but is composed of all those who have banded themselves together to learn and apply the principles of mysticism and the occult rites. They are, or should be, philosophers, sages, and sober-minded individuals who have dedicated themselves upon the Masonic altar and vowed by all they hold dear that the world shall be better, wiser. Sorry. Yes, that the world shall be better, wiser, and happier because they have lived. Those who enter these mystic rites and pass between the pillars seeking either prestige or commercial advantage are blasphemers. And while in this world we may count them as successful, they are the cosmic failures who have barred themselves out from the true right, whose keynote is unselfishness and whose workers have renounced the things of earth. In ancient times, many years of preparation were required before the neophyte was permitted to enter the temple of the mysteries. In this way, the shallow, the curious, the faint of heart, and those unable to withstand the temptations of life were automatically eliminated by their inability to meet the requirements for admission. The successful candidate who did pass between the pillars entered the temple, keenly realizing his sublime opportunity, his divine obligation, and the mystic privilege which he had earned for himself through years of special preparation. Only those are truly Masons who enter their temple in reverence, who seek not the ephemeral things of life, but the treasures which are eternal, whose sole desire is to know the true mystery of the craft, that they may join as honest workmen who have gone before as builders of the universal temple. The Masonic ritual is not a ceremony, but a life to be lived. Those alone are truly Masons who are dedicating their lives and their fortunes upon the altar of the living flame, undertake the construction of the one universal building in which they are the workmen and their God, their living architect. When we have Masons like this, the craft will again be operative. The flaming triangle will shine forth with greater luster. The dead builder will rise from his tomb, and the lost word, so long concealed from the profane, will blaze forth again with the power that makes all things new. In the pages that follow have been set down a number of thoughts for the study and consideration of temple builders, craftsmen, and artisans alike. They are the keys which, if only read, will leave the student still in ignorance, but if lived, will change the speculative masonry of today into the operative masonry of tomorrow, when each builder, realizing his own place, will see things which he never saw before, not because they are not there, but because he was blind. And there are none so blind as those who will not see. So ends chapter 1. That chapter 1 was called the Eternal Quest. This eternal quest is the quest of the knights of the Arthurian age. This eternal quest was the quest of the troubadours as they spoke about love and wisdom. This eternal quest was the quest of the Masons and the magical beings of the early 19, late 1800s. See, I jumped ahead. And now to go back, this quest was the eternal quest of the Gnostics, the Neoplatonists, and all the like in that time frame, the astrologers and the magical individuals, the theologians and diviners. This eternal quest is the adept quest that Manley P. Hall is speaking about in almost all of his work. Not almost. I will state, in all of Manley P. Hall's work, he is speaking about this. And this isn't something that only I can do, or only the rich can do, or only those who are in a monastery can do, or on a temple, or on the top of a hill. This is something that we all can do, who, all of us sitting in our rooms right now listening to me, everyone who is not listening to me, everyone in the entire world can go on this grail quest, this eternal quest, because either way you're in it. And I think becoming aware and awake is really important, because who wants to be an NPC? We all know people when you interact with a non-playable character out in the world, right? Again, Magus in the media, non-playable character, media, video game world, right? That's something that we all know. Non-playable characters, right? Here we go. Ready Player One is a movie that talks about virtual reality. The dystopian nature of that movie and book is that everyone hates their life unless they're part of the corporate rich, right? That all the people, because the middle class has basically been like thrown out. Some kind of cataclysm happened, maybe not even a big one, but they created virtual reality in that world. And now everyone puts on a little headset and they have the ability to be any character or player they want. That sounds, my video game mind is like, that's cool. The problem is the body, right? And so in that world, Ready Player One, just as a reference, you come across other players and you know when they're other players, or you come across non-playable characters and they just scripts. They just talk. And these scripts are done by who? The Demiurge, right? The programmer who scripted that world. And why this is important is because of it's the same thing in The Matrix, right? The Matrix, Ready Player One, any of these dystopian sci-fi shows and movies, they kind of show us this kind of thing. Sword Art Online, even though it gets a lot of hate in the world, it's got a lot of cool things, and I think everyone should watch it. Probably not, but I'll do a video on it, so you don't have to watch it. You can just do the video on why it's so cool. It's kind of long. Anyway, now the point is that non-playable characters are just those in this metaphor who are unawake, right? I can be every once in a while a non-playable character, and I have enough humility to say that. I mean, all my friends out there will probably also know there's moments where I just talk. Right. And in that talking, things just come out. And the idea is that those things that I'm speaking out are part of the script, are part of the program, that the robot, the initial 4 circuits in my being are They're just playing out. And so until the master builder, until the master who makes the grass green, until the higher circuits kick in and realize, oh, I don't want to be doing that, I want to have a real conversation, then we can get outside of being the non-playable character, and I can be the hero on the journey. I can be on my eternal quest again, because then I can understand that there are things around me that are giving me clues to the next great adventure on my eternal quest. And so I think that's why we're seeing a lot of it in our science fiction today, in our sci-fi, is because of I think also Carl Jung would state this, and other Jungians would state this, is that consciousness is trying to leak us information from the mythological, mystical realms, from the realms of the archetypical, and from the God realm of self, is trying to leak us clues about truth. Heidegger calls it aletheia, right? And he gets that term from the Greeks, from Parmenides, I believe. And that term aletheia, it truly just means unveiling or disclosure. And I think that truth is continually trying to disclose itself to us. But if we're a non-playable character, we can't do that. And so in this book, what I'm talking about, non-playable character, I'm talking about the three people who killed Hiram Abiff. I'm talking about thought, desire, and action. The three ruffians who are slaying the spirit of man, and they're bringing down the temple of creation, right? It's not a Abrahamic God thing. What it is it's you can be the Platonic ideal, that you have the ability to be both the king, lover, warrior, magician, and that when you actualize those things into your life may not get better right away, but at least you will be making strides towards having the best life that you can live. And so what this states also, I don't know if I'll be able to find it right off the bat, is that he stated that the more karmic responsibility you take on, the more, just one second, let's see if I can find it. Because I find that to be also really important. That when I was reading that, I was like, wow, that's his karmic responsibilities increase with his opportunities. So the more you move through the world and the more you go through your baggage and your mental jungle in there that's got all this crap, and you really work through those 4 circuits that Robert Anton Wilson is talking about in his Prometheus Rising, because that's what he's talking about in that book, is that Prometheus is rising out of you so you can bring fire to the rest of the world. And I think that's what Manley P. Hall is doing here, is that your karmic responsibilities increase with your opportunities. So the more opportunities are in the world, it doesn't mean that everything's just going to be okay. It means that your karma is going to continually be burning. I think that's what that means. I mean, again, write me in the comments if you have anything that this comes up for you. So I think that let's see here. Oh, one more thought as I was reading this. Okay. And I think this is important. And I try to bring this up in conversations with friends and with anybody I can get my hands on, because I just like to talk to people about things, crazy shit that maybe not everybody wants to hear. And because I think I'm trying to remind myself as well, is that in ancient times, many years of preparation were required before the neophyte was permitted to enter the temple of the mysteries. In this way, the shallow, the curious, the faint of heart, and those unable to withstand the temptations of life were automatically eliminated by their inability to meet the requirements for admission. That reminds me of how many burnouts happened in the 60s and 70s because they took too much psychedelic. They took too much of something. And I think that when that divine light enters into your nervous system and your nervous system isn't ready, I think that is what happens to the body and our mind. Is that I think that the body wasn't prepared, the temple wasn't prepared for the divine energy, and that you need to first do study and get our body in shape and do the yogic practices of asana, right? Or the kung fu practices of asana, and really work on the mental stuff. And then they can go through these things, because I think if you go through these things and either you burn out or become a Sith, right? Or use these powers for evil. And I think that's my thoughts on that part. Let me look up here. I got a comment from Andrew. Something we say the climbing world is that, something we say in the climbing world is that when you get better at climbing, you are rewarded with harder routes to climb. Andrew, genius. I completely agree. That's really smart. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Thank you, Andrew, for that comment. Because, yeah, of course, that makes sense. It's the same thing as when we level up in a video game, right? When you're leveling up in your video game, you get harder levels. And so once you level up through one level, you may get a badass sword or a badass shield, or you may get something cool. And then all of a sudden, the next level, you have to face harder enemies. And that makes complete sense to me. Or you go on in your game and you get your ass kicked because you weren't prepared for it, right? That's a great analogy to this. Or again, of what Andrew said, is that, you're rewarded with harder routes to climb. That's great. So yeah. Yeah, quite the uplift there. I agree. Quite the uplift there, guys. Get better to face greater challenges. I agree every day. Even, and don't just do it for yourself, right? That's the first person to do it for. Do it for yourself. And then once you realize you're doing it for yourself, you can realize maybe how shitty you were being to everybody else, right? I've kind of come to that, is that like throughout the years, and sometimes laying boundaries seems like being shitty to others, but really it's not. It's actually just standing in your own power, and others can either stand there with you and move along, or they'll just be put aside, and then maybe they come back, because we don't hold grudges. We just do. We just move along in our journey. And I think that for this kind of world, I think there are a lot of demons in the world. And I don't even mean maybe like physical demons, but I think these spiritual ideas, these spiritual demons, these ideas in the demon sphere, I think these things can inhabit people. Because a lot of these demons, like fear and ignorance and lust and all these things, I think they can inhabit somebody and they can take over somebody. That's called an egregore. An egregore is an autonomous entity, right? So fear has its own egregore. And a lot of times, let's say in the Goetia, in the Lesser Keys of Solomon, or in our mythologies of old, these demons are given names, right? I will also state a lot of these names of these demons were old gods from other places, so that needs to be said. But realize by every sign, symbol, and story you put into your world, into your being, you are bringing in those bits of information that are then going into your nervous system. And so take heed, right? Take heed. Side note, this is why I don't like the microdosing thing of our new world, right? I think that is very dangerous. And I think that's dangerous is because of LSD and mushrooms and ketamine and these things. They really are putting your nervous system into a state of wiring. They're neuroprogramming drugs, which I think are really important, and they've been really helpful on my journey. But also, if you're continually just ingesting these things, you're losing out on the grand vision, because as Toole states, you must, and this, I'm gonna butcher this, but I took enough to make me enter. Who am I to judge and strike me down? It's like you must have the right key for the right door. And so sometimes I think you need to take enough of these things to push you through so you can have the divine experiences, right? Behind closed eyes. Mystery comes from the term mystos, which means behind closed eyes. So witness the mystery, you must close your eyes. And along with that, it goes back to the idea that the microdosing thing is dangerous, right? And this isn't like a dare type of thing. I'm just stating that part of this is understanding, and part of Magus and media is understanding that if we're continually taking in signs, symbols, and stories, mythologies that are packaged into memes, that when you're putting your nervous system into a state of programming, that then you're being programmed by things unless you become aware that and knowing that you're being programmed by them. So there we are. we have come to maybe the end of episode 2. I'm going to give us a few minutes just to see if anybody has anything else, questions, comments, concerns. Great. I appreciate everyone out there. I will be continuing to do my live streams, and we will continue on the journey of the Lost Keys of Freemasonry. I highly suggest, if you don't have one, you go and buy one. I might put a link in here, and I'll probably put a link in here after this to go to Amazon and be able to buy it through my link. Support Magus in the media so I can continue doing these breakdowns, these stories and shows. Thank you, Casey. Let's do it again. It's in the title of our show. It's called The Lost Keys of Freemasonry by Manley P. Hall. Again, this book has a lot more in it than just the initial story. It also includes these classic works: Freemasonry of the Ancient Egyptians and Masonic Orders of Fraternity. So it actually has certain symbols, actually has rituals in there that you could follow, do them in your mind, understand them. I highly think everyone should, right? Everyone that who's in the right place too, right? It's nothing to be pushed upon anybody. It's when you are ready, it will be there. And you will be able to click the link in my description. And also if not, just go to Amazon and buy it, because either way, you should just get it. And again, I will be continuing reading this in episode 3, which it looks like I'll probably do that on Wednesday. Also, I am starting to do breakdowns along with the video essays that I do. I'm going to start doing, I love Kagura Baki, which is a manga that is just brilliant. It's coming out right now. Eventually, they're going to do an anime. And so I'm going to be doing Kagura Baki chapter by chapter, probably starting this week. Hopefully get 2 chapters done this week, as well as I will be coming out with the Wheels of Time video essay, where I break down actually the Taoist Eastern alchemy going on in that, the magical systems that are going on in that, and how those magical systems are for every one of us. That when you're watching a magical system happening, when people are doing magic in shows, that these are things that you can do yourself. So watch that video essay. It's this very similar content as what I'm doing and all the other stuff. This one really gets deep into Wheel of Time's magical system of channeling the one power of the yin and the yang, the Saidir and Saidin, and how to become an Aes Sedai, or how to become the dragon reborn. So thank you. I will state again, subscribe if you haven't, like and share to your friends. And until next time, this is Magus in the Media.